Lily was the kind of person most people walked past without noticing. She worked quietly at a small community center, helping with simple tasks like sorting papers, answering phones, and keeping things tidy. She wasn't loud, she wasn't bold, and she never tried to draw attention to herself. She moved gently through the building each day, almost like she was trying not to disturb the air around her. People thought she was shy, maybe even a little unsure of herself, but no one really took the time to know her. And she didn't push anyone to try. Every morning she arrived a little early, before the building got busy. She liked those quiet minutes when she could hear the echo of her own footsteps on the clean floor, when there were no voices, no rush, no noise. In one corner of the lobby stood an old upright piano. The wood was scratched, the keys were yellowed, and most folks assumed it barely worked. Kids tapped on it sometimes just to make noise, but no one ever played a real song on it. It was more like a piece of furniture than an instrument. But for Lily, that piano was the only thing in the room she couldn't ignore. She never talked about music to anyone. She never boasted, never even mentioned she knew how to play. When others passed by the piano, they just saw an object. When she passed by it, her eyes softened, her shoulders relaxed, and something stirred inside her, something she didn't let the world see. Still, she never sat down to play when people were around. She only touched the keys when she believed no one would hear. Most afternoons, when her shift ended and the center was nearly empty, she would sit at the piano for a moment. She didn't play songs. She didn't try complicated pieces. She would just press a few quiet notes, almost as if she was checking if the piano was still alive. Or maybe if she still was. The notes were soft and careful, like someone testing cold water with their fingertips. People saw her as a beginner because that's all they ever heard. A few light scales, a hesitant melody that faded quickly. They assumed she didn't know much, and she never corrected them. She let the world believe she was just a simple worker who barely knew how to play. She liked simple things. Warm tea, quiet corners, watching the sunlight move across the floor as the day passed. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't trying to show off. She just wanted peace, and for the most part, she had it. But peace has a way of attracting disruption. Among the staff at the community center was a young man named Ryan. He wasn't shy. He wasn't quiet. He wasn't gentle. He liked jokes, loud conversations, and being noticed. He never did anything cruel on purpose, at least not in his eyes, but he had a habit of laughing at things he didn't understand. He was confident, always talking about what he could do, what he planned to do, and what he thought others couldn't do. He liked being the one with all the answers. And when he saw someone unsure or quiet, it made him feel even bigger. Ryan played piano too, or at least he liked to say he did. He knew a few flashy pieces he had learned from online videos, and when he performed them, he slammed the keys with a lot of energy. People cheered because it was loud and exciting, and Ryan loved every second of that attention. He liked the idea of being the piano guy at the center. Even if his skill wasn't very deep, his confidence filled the space around him. He had noticed Lily a few times tapping lightly on the piano, but he never paid much attention. To him, she was just that quiet worker who barely spoke. He assumed she didn't know anything about music. And because she never said otherwise, that idea became fixed in his mind. One day, as Lily was wiping the counter near the front desk, her eyes drifted again toward the piano. The building was quieter than usual. Rain tapped softly against the windows, and most people had gone home early. She felt that familiar pull toward the keys. Something about the sound of rain made her long for music even more, like the world was inviting her to breathe a little deeper. She walked slowly to the piano and sat down. Her fingers hovered over the keys, tense at first, then relaxed. She pressed a gentle note. It rang softly in the air, blending with the rain outside. She played a simple scale, one note after another, quiet but steady. Her shoulders eased. Her eyes softened. It was the one place she felt she didn't have to try so hard to stay small. What she didn't know was that she wasn't alone. Ryan had come back inside, shaking rain from his hair and carrying a cup of coffee. He saw her from across the room, sitting at the piano, plunking little notes like a student just starting out. A grin spread across his face, not a kind smile, but the kind of grin someone gets when they think they've spotted something silly. He walked closer, not bothering to stay quiet. His footsteps echoed, but Lily was too focused on the keys to notice right away. When he finally stopped beside her, she startled slightly and pulled her hands away from the keys, as if she had been caught doing something wrong. "Oh, wow," he laughed lightly. "You practicing again?" His tone wasn't gentle. It wasn't curious. It was teasing. Lily blinked, unsure what to say. She wasn't used to long conversations, especially ones that drew attention to her. "I was just trying a few notes," she said softly. Ryan leaned one elbow on the piano, sipping his coffee like a spectator at a funny show. "You know, if you ever want real lessons, I could help you out. I mean, you look like you're still at the baby step stage." She didn't reply. Not because she agreed, but because she wasn't the type to argue. She felt heat rise to her cheeks, not anger, just embarrassment. She had always been afraid of being watched, especially when music was involved. The piano wasn't something she played for others. It was something she held close, something fragile. Ryan chuckled again. "I mean, it's cute, really, but maybe stick to simple stuff. Don't want to break the piano, right?" It was meant as a joke, but it sliced deeper than he knew. Lily stood slowly, offering a small, polite nod before stepping away. She didn't run. She didn't snap. She simply walked back toward the desk, her heart beating faster than before. She told herself it didn't matter. She told herself it was fine. She told herself she didn't care what he thought. But part of her hurt in a way she hadn't expected. Music wasn't just a hobby for her. It wasn't something she picked up recently. It was a part of her history, a part she had tried to bury because life had pushed her away from it. Years ago, she had trained seriously. She had dreams, once big dreams, but life had taken a harsh turn, forcing her to let go of the very thing she loved most. After that, she decided it was easier to stay invisible than to risk being seen and misunderstood. So she kept her talent locked away. And now, even a stranger's careless words felt like proof that she had made the right choice in hiding it. Better to be quiet than to be mocked. Better to keep her music silent than to be judged. Ryan, on the other hand, walked away feeling amused. He didn't think he had done anything wrong. In his mind, it was harmless fun. He didn't see the weight his words carried. He didn't realize how they echoed in her chest long after he left the room. The next day, Lily arrived even earlier than usual. The building was nearly dark, the sun just beginning to rise. She stood near the piano, but didn't sit down. She just stared at it. Her fingers twitched slightly, like they remembered something she refused to let them express. She wanted to play. She wanted to feel the music again. But the memory of yesterday's laughter held her back. She stepped away and went to her desk instead. Throughout the day, she worked quietly. She greeted guests. She sorted papers. She kept the floors clean. No one saw the storm inside her. No one knew that music was pressing against her chest, asking to be let out. And no one noticed how carefully she avoided looking at the piano. Ryan passed by her a few times, smiling like everything was normal. To him, it was. To her, the world felt a little heavier. In the late afternoon, A few staff members gathered near the front desk, talking about an upcoming talent night that the center wanted to host. It was a small event they held once a year, just something fun for the community, a chance for people to perform songs, dances, or little acts. People laughed and shared ideas about what they might do. Ryan jumped in right away, bragging about how he would play a big, dramatic piano piece. He talked loudly about how everyone would be amazed, how the crowd would go wild, how he would be the star of the night. People seemed entertained, nodding and encouraging him. Lily listened quietly from the side, pretending to focus on her work, but her heart was pounding. The thought of a piano performance stirred something deep inside her. Fear, longing, memories she had locked away. Someone jokingly said, "Maybe Lily can play too." The group chuckled lightly, not out of cruelty, but out of assumption, an assumption that she didn't know anything beyond a few clumsy notes. Ryan smirked and shook his head. "I mean, she's sweet, but that stage might be a little too much for her. Maybe next year." Everyone moved on with the conversation, but Lily stood perfectly still, her hands frozen mid-motion. She didn't look hurt. She didn't look angry. She just looked thoughtful. Something was shifting inside her. She didn't know what it meant yet. She didn't know what she would do. But for the first time in a long time, the silence inside her wasn't empty. It was full of something waiting to awaken. And somewhere deep in her memory, a single note echoed clear, strong, and impossible to ignore. The day after the brief conversation at the community center, the air felt different to Lily. She arrived early as usual, the rain still fresh on the pavement, the smell of wet earth drifting in through the open door. The lobby was quiet, with only the hum of the fluorescent lights filling the space. The piano in the corner seemed to wait for her, as if it knew she was thinking about it. Lily stood there for a long moment, unsure if she wanted to touch the keys. She remembered the laughter, the teasing voice of Ryan, and for a second her chest tightened. But then something else surfaced, a small, stubborn spark she hadn't felt in a long time. The spark of music, of something she once loved, something she had buried but never truly let go of. She walked slowly toward the piano, her hands brushing lightly over the dusty wood. She didn't sit down at first. She just rested her fingers on the keys, feeling the familiar coolness beneath her fingertips. She closed her eyes and pressed a single key. The note rang out, soft but clear. She smiled faintly, almost to herself, as the sound resonated in the empty room. She began to play slowly, carefully, letting the notes flow like water over rocks. Her fingers moved naturally, almost without thought, remembering movements she had not practiced for years. A simple melody emerged, quiet and delicate, yet full of feeling. At first, she thought she was alone. She thought no one had entered the room. But then she heard footsteps, the soft scuff of shoes on the polished floor. She opened her eyes to see Ryan standing near the doorway, watching her. His smirk was back, the same playful expression he wore when he teased people, the same look that made her want to shrink away. "Practicing again?" he asked, his tone light, but with that edge of amusement. "Or is this your big debut?" Lily didn't stop playing. She let the music speak for her, letting the notes tell the story of years of training and quiet passion. She didn't glance at him, didn't react to his teasing. She just kept going, slow and steady, a melody simple yet pure. Ryan took a few steps closer, tilting his head. "You know," he said, "you don't have to hide behind the piano. It's okay if people see you're not very good yet." His words were meant to mock, but there was an odd curiosity in his tone. He wasn't used to someone ignoring him, to someone not reacting to his jokes. Lily continued, her fingers dancing lightly over the keys. She played scales, simple arpeggios, testing her own memory. She could feel the music waking up inside her, stirring memories she thought she had lost. Each note reminded her of late nights spent at a piano, of a time when music was her world. She felt both nervous and free at the same time, like stepping into a world she had been forbidden to enter. Ryan moved a little closer, his smirk fading slightly. He leaned on the piano edge, watching her. There was a flicker of surprise in his eyes, something he wasn't used to. Most people stopped at the first few awkward notes, giggled, and walked away. But Lily's hands didn't falter. Her fingers moved with precision, even grace, as if the piano remembered her better than she remembered herself. You've been playing for a while, haven't you? He asked quietly, no longer teasing. The words were a question, though he didn't expect an answer. He hadn't seen her like this before, and it made him pause. Lily stopped for a moment, turning to him slowly, her face calm. "I've played for years," she said softly. The words were almost a whisper. "I just stopped showing it." Ryan blinked. That wasn't what he expected. He had assumed she was a beginner, someone to laugh at, someone who barely knew a note. He had never imagined that she had trained seriously, that music had been a central part of her life. He didn't know what to say. The moment stretched, filled only with the soft hum of the piano and the quiet drip of rain outside. Lily moved back to the keys and pressed a few more notes, letting the melody continue. She didn't need approval. She didn't need applause. She just needed to play. Ryan shifted his weight from foot to foot, watching her. Something in him changed during those minutes. The playful arrogance, the teasing confidence, it all faded as he realized that this quiet woman had a depth he had never considered. He had underestimated her. He had assumed she was simple, easy to mock, but that assumption was wrong. For Lily, the presence of Ryan didn't distract her. In fact, it made her more determined. She remembered the many times she had been laughed at, told she wasn't good enough, told she should give up. The teasing from Ryan, though minor compared to the past, reminded her of those moments. But instead of shrinking, she let it fuel her. She let the music speak louder than the words, louder than the doubt, louder than the assumptions of others. She played for a long while, the melody growing more confident, more expressive. Each note carried her past with it, every pause filled with feeling, every chord a statement of who she was. The piano seemed to come alive under her hands, responding to the touch of someone who knew it intimately, someone who had spent years learning its language. Ryan stayed by the doorway, fascinated. He didn't move closer or interrupt. He just watched, slowly understanding that the quiet woman he had thought of as unskilled had a talent he couldn't ignore. He had laughed at her yesterday, and today he felt a strange sense of guilt, though he didn't fully understand why. It was the first time he had seen someone completely defy his assumptions, and it left him off balance. Eventually, Lily finished the piece she had been playing. The final note lingered in the air, resonant and clear. She didn't look for approval. She didn't turn to see Ryan's reaction. She simply sat back, her hands resting lightly on the keys, breathing quietly. Her heart was racing, not from fear, but from the thrill of doing something she had long denied herself. Ryan stood in silence, unsure what to say. He had expected clumsiness, mistakes, maybe even a laugh from himself. Instead, he had witnessed something remarkable. He felt respect growing in his chest, mixed with a touch of embarrassment for his earlier teasing. Finally, he spoke. I didn't know," he said simply. No smirk, no joke, just a quiet acknowledgement. "You're really good." Lily nodded slightly, not smiling, not frowning. She accepted the words quietly, without celebration. The music had been its own reward. She had played for herself first, for the memories and the feeling, not for anyone else's approval. For the rest of the day, she carried a lightness she hadn't felt in years. The piano was no longer just a piece of furniture in the lobby. It was a part of her again. She found herself imagining melodies she wanted to play, pieces she wanted to master. The teasing, the assumptions, even Ryan's presence, they no longer held the power to discourage her. Ryan, on the other hand, found himself thinking about the quiet woman and her piano. He replayed the melody in his mind, the way her fingers moved, the confidence hidden beneath her calm exterior. For the first time, he considered that people could be more than they seemed, that assumptions could be completely wrong. Later that week, the talent night at the center was announced. Ryan immediately began planning his performance, talking about flashy songs, dramatic flourishes, how everyone would cheer for him. Lily heard the announcement from her desk. She didn't speak, didn't react immediately. But inside, something shifted. The teasing voice from the past echoed faintly in her mind, but it no longer carried the same weight. Instead, she felt a sense of quiet determination. The piano had called her back. The music had reminded her who she was. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop hiding. As the days passed, Lily began spending more time at the piano. Not just alone, but occasionally, when a few others were around. She played quietly, letting the notes flow, letting people catch glimpses of what they had assumed was a simple hobby. Some noticed, some didn't, but she no longer minded. She had remembered the joy of music, and that joy was stronger than any teasing, any assumption, any small laugh from someone like Ryan. And as she practiced, as she allowed the music to fill the quiet spaces of the community center, she began to plan something. She didn't know exactly what would happen on talent night, but she knew this. She would play, and this time, she wouldn't hide. The piano had waited for her. It had always waited, and she was ready to answer in that quiet determination. Lily found something she hadn't realized she was missing. She found courage. She found joy. And she found a promise to herself that she would never let someone else's assumptions define her again. Even Ryan began to notice. He passed the piano more often, sometimes lingering to hear the faint notes she allowed to escape. He no longer smirked. He no longer joked. There was a new sense of awareness in his eyes, a realization that this quiet woman was something he had never understood before, and maybe something he never would fully understand. No matter how hard he tried, the stage was approaching, and Lily's heart beat with anticipation she hadn't felt in years. She wasn't nervous about being watched. She was nervous about the music itself, about whether she could remember all the nuances, all the feelings that had been tucked away. But more than that, she was ready. Ready to let the piano speak, ready to let her hands tell the story she had kept silent for so long. And in that quiet determination, in that slow, deliberate step toward reclaiming her gift, Lily knew that she was no longer the shy, invisible worker she had been. She was a musician, a player, a storyteller in her own right. The community center had no idea what was about to happen, and Ryan had no idea what he had done. The announcement of the talent night spread quickly through the community center. Flyers went up on the bulletin boards, staff members whispered about it during breaks, and the chatter of excitement floated through the hallways like a gentle wind. For most people, it was just a small event, a way for the center to bring the community together. But for Lily, it meant something entirely different. She had spent the past few days practicing quietly at the piano, each day feeling more confident, each day remembering more about herself and her skills. The thought of performing in front of an audience made her heart race in a way that was both thrilling and frightening. She knew that when the day came, she couldn't hide behind anonymity anymore. This was no longer just about playing a few notes in solitude. This was about stepping into the light, about showing the world what she could do, about facing people who thought they knew her and proving them wrong. Ryan, of course, had already announced that he would perform. He was confident, loud, and eager for attention, and he loved the idea of being the star of the show. He strutted around the center for days, practicing his flashy pieces, talking about how the audience would cheer for him, and reminding everyone within earshot of how impressive he would be. He didn't notice the quiet glances Lily gave him from across the room. He didn't notice the subtle way she ignored his boasting, the way she prepared herself with calm determination rather than showy bravado. Lily's coworkers began nudging her quietly, hinting that she might want to participate. "You could play," one of them said gently. "You know, if you want to." Lily nodded politely, not giving an answer right away. Inside, her mind raced. The thought of performing in front of the staff and a small crowd filled her with anxiety, but it also stirred a hidden excitement. She had always avoided attention, but the piano had called her back to herself. It had reminded her of the joy of music, of the hours she had spent practicing, of the dreams she had once had. Finally, after much thought, she quietly approached the director. "I'd like to participate," she said softly, her voice calm but steady. "I want to play." The director's eyes widened slightly, but she smiled warmly. "That's wonderful. I think everyone will enjoy it. You'll need to choose a piece and practice in the hall so we can set up for the night." Lily nodded and stepped away. She felt a mix of excitement and nerves. The path ahead was unfamiliar, but it felt right. She went to the piano in the lobby and began to practice, letting the music flow naturally. Her fingers moved with precision, her mind focused entirely on the melody. Each note was deliberate, each chord full of feeling. She played for hours, sometimes stopping to rest, sometimes repeating sections over and over, determined to prepare herself fully. Meanwhile, Ryan noticed the change in the lobby. He saw Lily sitting at the piano more often, quietly pressing keys with a skill that was clearly beyond that of a beginner. He raised an eyebrow, confused, and a flicker of concern crossed his face. For the first time, he realized that she might actually have real talent. He brushed it off at first, telling himself he was imagining it. But as the days passed, he couldn't ignore the truth. One afternoon, he walked past the piano while Lily was practicing a complex arpeggio. He paused, genuinely surprised. "You've been practicing a lot, huh?" he said, trying to sound casual. Lily didn't look up. She continued her practice, letting her fingers glide across the keys. She didn't answer. Her focus was on the music, not on the conversation. Ryan felt a mix of curiosity and unease. He had expected her to be nervous or clumsy, maybe make a few mistakes, but what he saw was something entirely different. She was confident, precise, and the melody she played was beautiful. He shifted his weight from foot to foot, unsure how to respond. The next day, rumors about Lily's participation in the talent night began to spread. Some staff members were curious, some were skeptical, and a few were genuinely excited. No one had ever seen her perform beyond a few quiet notes in the lobby. People began to whisper, "Do you think she's actually good? I wonder what she'll play. She's so quiet. Can she really perform on stage?" Ryan, of course, heard all of this. He felt a strange mixture of pride and anxiety. Pride because he had been the first to notice her at the piano. Anxiety because he now realized that she might outshine him. He began practicing more aggressively, determined to make sure he would still be the center of attention. For Lily, the whispers didn't matter. She focused on her practice, letting the piano guide her. She experimented with different pieces, testing her memory and skill, playing long hours into the evening when the building was empty. She began to feel a growing connection with the music, a quiet joy that filled the spaces in her life that had long been empty. Each day, she discovered more about herself and her talent, slowly building the confidence she would need for the stage. The center began preparing for the talent night. Chairs were set up in rows, decorations were hung, and a small stage was placed near the piano. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Ryan continued to boast, speaking loudly about his performance, joking with staff and volunteers about how amazing he would be. People laughed and clapped him on the back, fueling his ego even more. Lily, on the other hand, kept her intentions quiet. She didn't speak much about what she would play or how she would perform. She only practiced, letting the music fill her quietly. Sometimes she would glance at the stage and imagine herself there, sitting at the piano while the audience watched. She pictured the way her hands would move, the way the notes would flow, and the sense of calm focus she would need to maintain. A few staff members tried to encourage her further. "You know," one said gently, "people are really excited to see you play. Don't be nervous. You've got this." Lily smiled faintly, nodding, but inside she felt a quiet nervousness she couldn't ignore. She had performed before, yes, but never for an audience that expected something extraordinary. The piano had always been a private companion, not a stage partner. She knew she would have to overcome more than just her nerves. She would have to face the assumptions, the whispers, and the teasing that might come from people who didn't understand her. Ryan, meanwhile, was becoming more aware of Lily's presence at the piano. One day, he walked past and watched silently as she played a particularly complex piece. Her fingers moved with precision and grace, each note clear and resonant. He felt a flicker of doubt. He had assumed he would be the star, the person everyone admired. But now he realized that Lily could easily steal the attention he thought was guaranteed. He cleared his throat, attempting to regain control of the situation. "Nice," he said casually, though there was an edge of uncertainty in his voice. "You've been practicing a lot." Lily didn't respond. She continued her piece, letting the music speak for her. She didn't need to prove anything to him or anyone else. She was preparing for herself, for the joy of playing, and for the challenge of stepping onto the stage with confidence. As the talent night approached, the atmosphere in the center grew more intense. Volunteers rehearsed their roles, decorations were adjusted, and Ryan continued to talk about his upcoming performance as if it were already a certainty that he would be the star. People whispered about Lily in quiet tones, expressing curiosity, skepticism, or excitement. The anticipation in the air was tangible, like the calm before a storm. Lily spent her days leading up to the event in quiet preparation. She practiced long hours, refining her technique, experimenting with different interpretations of her chosen piece, and imagining the way she would sit at the piano under the spotlight. She focused on her breathing, on the flow of the music, and on the emotional connection she wanted to convey to the audience. Every time she played, she felt a sense of liberation, as if each note released a small burden she had been carrying for years. The teasing and assumptions of others no longer held the same power over her. She had found her confidence again, and it grew with each hour she spent at the piano. On the day before the talent night, Lily practiced late into the evening. The lobby was empty, the building silent, except for the soft hum of the piano and the faint rustle of her fingers moving across the keys. She played slowly at first, then gradually built up to a full piece, letting the melody flow naturally. When she finished, she sat back and let the final note linger in the air. She felt ready. Not because she was perfect, but because she had reclaimed something she thought she had lost. She had taken the first step toward facing the audience, toward standing on the stage, and toward showing the world what she could do. Ryan, on the other hand, spent the evening rehearsing his flashy pieces, trying to make sure he would still command attention. He had no idea that the quiet, unassuming woman he had teased would be the one who left the biggest impression. He had no idea that his assumptions about Lily were about to be completely shattered, and so the stage was set. The audience would arrive. The chairs would be filled. Ryan would perform with confidence. And Lily, quietly determined, would step forward to play, not just for the crowd, but for herself, reclaiming the music that had always been a part of her. The tension, the anticipation, and the quiet undercurrent of excitement all built toward one moment. A moment that would challenge assumptions, that would reveal hidden talent, and that would remind everyone that appearances can be. The evening of the talent night arrived with a quiet excitement that filled the community center. Outside, the sky was dark, and streetlights cast soft pools of light on the wet pavement. The doors opened to welcome families, neighbors, and staff members who had come to see the performances. The chatter of voices, the shuffle of feet, and the occasional laugh made the air feel alive, charged with anticipation. Lily arrived early, as she always did, carrying a small bag with a notebook of sheet music she had carefully prepared. Her heart beat steadily, not in fear, but in a quiet rhythm of determination. The lobby had been transformed into a small performance space. Chairs were arranged in neat rows facing a stage that had been set up around the old piano. Fairy lights hung along the walls, casting a soft, golden glow, and a few potted plants added warmth to the room. The atmosphere was welcoming, yet charged with the expectation of talent about to be displayed. Lily felt her fingers twitch slightly as she approached the piano. This was it, the moment she had been preparing for, in secret, the chance to play, in front of others, and reclaim a part of herself that had long been silent. Ryan was already there, fussing over his sheet music, practicing his dramatic pieces, and making sure everyone could see him preparing. He had a confident, almost theatrical air about him. He waved at a few friends in the audience, smiled broadly, and talked loudly about how this performance would be remembered. He believed the night would belong to him, that he would be the one everyone cheered for, the one who captured all the attention. He had no idea that the quiet woman he had mocked was about to challenge that notion completely. The audience began to settle into their seats. Families with children, elderly couples, neighbors, and staff members whispered excitedly, some curious, some skeptical, about the upcoming performances. The air was a mix of expectation, curiosity, and the faint smell of popcorn from a small snack table in the corner. Lily quietly took her place behind the piano, feeling the smooth texture of the keys beneath her fingertips. The familiar sensation grounded her, reminding her of the countless hours she had spent practicing, learning, and dreaming of this moment long ago. Ryan went first, taking the stage with a flourish that drew immediate attention. He played a fast, flashy piece filled with dramatic gestures and loud notes. The audience clapped politely at his effort, some genuinely impressed, others a little amused by the showmanship. He smiled widely, soaking in the attention, completely unaware that the standard he was setting for himself was about to be appended. When Ryan finished, the applause filled the room. He took a small bow, basking in the approval, and returned to the side of the stage where Lily now waited. He looked over at her, a hint of smugness in his expression. "Your turn," he said lightly, as if he expected a timid, clumsy performance in response. Lily nodded, rising slowly from her chair. She did not speak. She walked toward the piano. With calm confidence, each step measured, each movement deliberate. She took a seat at the piano, adjusted the sheet music in front of her, and positioned her fingers over the keys. The room fell quiet, the audience leaning forward slightly in anticipation. Some whispered softly to one another, wondering what the shy woman would play. Ryan shifted on the side, still confident, but with a flicker of uncertainty beginning to creep in. Lily closed her eyes for a moment, letting her mind focus entirely on the music. She inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the room, the presence of the audience, and the stillness of the moment. Then she pressed a single key. The note rang out, pure and clear, filling the room with a sound that seemed to hang in the air longer than expected. The audience reacted subtly. A few gasps, a few widened eyes. Ryan's smirk faltered as he realized that this was no ordinary beginning. She began to play slowly, deliberately, letting each note speak with clarity and intention. The melody was gentle at first, almost cautious, but there was an unmistakable beauty in the sound. Her fingers moved gracefully across the keys, each chord resonating with precision and emotion. The music grew steadily, weaving a story that seemed to capture the attention of everyone in the room. The audience sat in stunned silence, caught off guard by the depth and skill of her performance. Ryan leaned forward slightly, his confidence waning. He had expected hesitation, mistakes, perhaps even awkward pauses. What he saw instead was mastery, calm and controlled, yet full of life and expression. He tried to analyze what was happening, to understand how someone he had dismissed so easily could command the piano with such authority. He felt a strange mix of awe and discomfort, realizing that his assumptions about Lily had been completely wrong. As she continued, the music grew more complex. She transitioned into arpeggios that required both precision and speed, executing each passage flawlessly. Her hands moved effortlessly, yet with elegance, each note carrying emotion that filled the room. The audience could feel the depth of her training, the hours of dedication hidden beneath her quiet exterior. Lily did not look at the crowd. She did not seek their approval. She played for herself, letting the music convey what words could not. The atmosphere in the room changed. The chatter, the whispers, and the small movements of the audience ceased. Everyone was focused entirely on the piano, on the music, on the performer who had defied their expectations so completely. Some leaned forward, mesmerized. Some closed their eyes, letting the sound wash over them. Even Ryan stood frozen, watching her fingers move with precision, realizing that the showmanship he had relied on could not compete with the sheer artistry unfolding before him. Lily reached the climax of her piece, the notes cascading in a brilliant, intricate pattern. The room was completely silent except for the music. It was a performance that combined technical skill with raw emotion, a story told entirely through the piano. Each note was deliberate, each pause meaningful, each chord resonant. The audience was captivated, unable to look away, unable to interrupt the spell that had been cast over the room. Finally, she played the last note. It rang out clearly, lingering in the air like a quiet declaration of triumph. She let her hands rest gently on the keys, breathing softly. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then, slowly, applause began to build, starting with one person, then another, until the entire room erupted in appreciation. People stood, clapping enthusiastically, some cheering, some whistling, all of them visibly moved by the performance they had just witnessed. Ryan stood frozen, staring at the piano. His mouth opened, then closed, as if words failed him. He had expected to be the star, to receive the loudest cheers, and instead, he had been overshadowed by the quiet woman he had once mocked. He felt a mix of humility and astonishment, an uncomfortable recognition that he had been wrong to underestimate her. Lily slowly rose from the piano, owing slightly to the audience. Her expression was calm, serene, almost as if she had not just captivated a room full of people, but had simply completed a task she had long been destined to do. She did not gloat. She did not seek attention. She merely acknowledged the moment, letting the music speak louder than any words ever could. People approached her afterward, offering compliments, asking how long she had been playing, expressing amazement at the depth of her talent. Some whispered that they had assumed she was a beginner, that they had laughed or doubted her abilities, and they could hardly believe the skill and grace they had witnessed. Lily smiled gently, accepting the words with quiet humility. Never. forgetting that the performance was for herself as much as it was for the audience. Ryan, meanwhile, finally found his voice. He approached her cautiously, unsure of how to address the situation. I didn't know you could play like that," he admitted, his usual confidence gone. I'm sorry for making fun of you before." "I didn't understand?" Lily nodded slightly, offering a small, forgiving smile. "It's okay," she said softly. "Everyone assumes things they shouldn't. What matters is what we can do, not what people think." He nodded, humbled, and for the first time, truly saw her not as a quiet worker, not as someone easy to dismiss, but as a talented, dedicated musician. He realized that assumptions could be wrong, that talent and skill often lie beneath the surface, hidden until the right moment reveals them. The rest of the evening continued with other performers, but the memory of Lily's performance lingered in the air. People talked about it, whispered about it, and remembered it long after the applause had faded. She had changed the night, had shifted the perception of everyone in the room, and had quietly claimed a place of respect and admiration she had never sought, but had undoubtedly earned. As she packed up her sheet music later, the piano's final notes still resonating in her mind, Lily felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had faced her fears, overcome doubt, and reclaimed a part of herself that had been silent for too long. She had turned a moment of teasing and underestimation into an opportunity to shine, to show that quiet determination and hidden talent could create something extraordinary. And Ryan, standing nearby, watched her leave with a newfound respect. He understood, perhaps for the first time, that true skill does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits patiently, quietly, until the moment is right, until the person who possesses it is ready to step forward. The talent night had begun with expectation, humor, and a sense of calm. The evening of the talent night had reached a level of anticipation that was almost tangible. Chairs were full, whispers floated like invisible threads through the room, and the soft light from the hanging bulbs reflected in the expectant eyes of the audience. Lily sat behind the piano, her fingers lightly brushing the keys. She could hear the murmurs, the quiet predictions about what she might play, the subtle skepticism from those who had only ever known her as quiet and reserved. She felt her heart beat, steady yet full of a quiet energy, ready to transform into the music she carried inside her. Ryan had performed first, his flashy, confident style earning polite applause, yet failing to leave a lasting impression. Now it was her turn. People shifted in their seats, craning their necks to see the shy woman step forward. Some whispered to each other, curious, doubtful, or amused. Most assumed she would be nervous, falter, or play a simple, clumsy piece just to fill the space. Ryan, still lingering near the stage, had a confident air, though a flicker of uncertainty had begun to creep in as he remembered the glimpses of her skill during the past few days. Lily rose from her chair, her posture calm, her movements deliberate. She walked to the piano with quiet grace, taking her seat in a way that demanded no attention but naturally drew it. The room seemed to pause, as if sensing the quiet gravity of what was about to unfold. She positioned her fingers above the keys, feeling their familiar cool texture beneath her touch. A hush fell over the audience, the kind of stillness that precedes a revelation. She pressed a single note. The sound rang out pure and resonant, filling the space with a clarity that caught everyone off guard. The note lingered in the air, longer than expected, steady and strong. For a moment, the audience didn't move. Some gasped softly, some leaned forward, and Ryan's confident smile faltered. He had anticipated hesitation, a timid start, perhaps a minor mistake. Instead, he was met with control, with certainty, with undeniable skill. That single note was all it took to transform the room. The quiet, unassuming woman who had been underestimated now held their attention completely. Every eye turned toward her, every ear attuned to the sound she created. The note was not just a sound, it was a statement, a declaration of her talent, her dedication, and the depth of her passion. Then she began to play. Slowly at first, building deliberately, her fingers moving with an elegance and precision that spoke of years of hidden training. The melody flowed effortlessly, each note deliberate yet expressive, telling a story without words. It was not showy, it was not loud, but it was beautiful, layered with feeling and mastery. The audience was captivated, unable to look away, unable to interrupt the spell she had cast over the room. Ryan shifted, uneasy as he watched her fingers dance across the keys. He had believed himself confident, secure in the knowledge that the night would be his. Now he was forced to reconsider everything he had assumed. He saw a depth of skill he had not imagined, a poise he had not expected, and a musicality that left him struggling to comprehend. His mind raced, attempting to process the fact that the person he had mocked, the quiet, reserved woman, was now commanding the room in a way he never could. The piece she played grew in complexity. Arpeggios flowed seamlessly, chords resonated fully, and delicate passages danced like sunlight across water. Each transition was perfect, each crescendo calculated yet natural. Lily's hands moved with effortless grace, her fingers a blur at times, but always precise. She commanded the piano with the quiet authority of someone who had spent a lifetime learning its language, someone who had carried its voice in her heart, even when she had been silent for years. The audience was spellbound. Parents and children, neighbors and staff members alike were caught in the tide of the music. Some leaned forward, captivated by the sound. Others closed their eyes, letting the melody wash over them. Even Ryan remained frozen, his usual bravado stripped away, replaced by awe and a touch of humility. He had never imagined that someone so quiet could evoke such power from the piano. Lily's playing continued, moving through sections that demanded both speed and precision, gentle emotion and technical mastery. Every chord, every note was deliberate, each pause filled with expression. The room felt suspended in time, the air charged with the magic of her performance. People whispered to themselves, internally marveling at what they were hearing. Some had doubted her completely, expecting hesitation and mediocrity. Now they were confronted with something extraordinary. As she approached the climax of the piece, the audience could feel the energy building, the tension rising with each note. Her fingers moved faster, yet with control, creating a cascade of sound that seemed to fill every corner of the room. The melody soared, reaching heights that were breathtaking, combining technical brilliance with emotional resonance. It was a performance that was impossible to ignore, impossible to dismiss, impossible to forget. The final notes rang out with clarity and strength, lingering in the silence that followed. Lily let her hands rest gently on the keys, breathing softly. She did not rush to rise, did not seek immediate recognition. She allowed the music to fade naturally, leaving the audience in awe. There was a moment of stillness, a collective holding of breath, as everyone processed what they had just witnessed. Then the applause began. Slowly at first, one hand clapping, then another, until the room erupted in appreciation. People stood, clapping and cheering, some whistling, some laughing with amazement. The applause was not just polite. It was genuine, heartfelt, a recognition of talent and dedication that could not be ignored. Lily smiled faintly, accepting the admiration with quiet grace. She did not bask in it. She simply acknowledged it, letting the moment exist as it was. Ryan approached her cautiously, still stunned by what he had just witnessed. His usual confidence had disappeared, replaced by a mixture of respect, awe, and embarrassment. I didn't know you could play like that," he admitted, his voice low and sincere. I'm sorry for making fun of you before. I didn't understand. Lily nodded slightly, a small smile forming. It's all right, she said softly. People assume things they shouldn't. What matters is what you can do, not what people think. He nodded, humbled. He realized that he had underestimated her completely, and that the quiet, reserved woman he had mocked possessed a talent that far exceeded his own. It was a lesson in humility, in respect, and in the danger of assumptions. He had been wrong, and he knew it. The audience continued to react, some approaching her to express admiration, some whispering to each other about the depth of her skill. They asked how long she had been playing, how she had learned so much, and some even confessed that they had assumed she could not play at all. Lily responded with gentle smiles, quietly accepting their praise without boasting. She had played for herself first, and now the world had witnessed the music she had kept hidden for so long. Ryan stayed nearby, watching her, absorbing the lesson in humility. He had entered the evening expecting to be the center of attention, to impress and entertain. Instead, he had witnessed a quiet, patient mastery that had captivated everyone, a performance that would be remembered long after the applause faded. He felt a shift in his perspective, a realization that true skill often hides behind quiet exteriors, that assumptions are dangerous, and that respect is earned, not assumed. Lily's performance had transformed the room. What had begun as a simple talent night was now a moment of revelation, a demonstration of perseverance, dedication, and the power of hidden talent. The audience, once skeptical, was now filled with admiration and awe. Ryan, once confident in his superiority, now understood the depth of skill and the importance of humility. As she rose from the piano, Lily felt a quiet sense of triumph. She had faced the audience, reclaimed her music, and reminded everyone present that talent cannot be measured by appearances. She had taken the one note that had started the performance and built it into a story of mastery, emotion and expression that no one would forget. The applause continued as she left the stage, her movements calm and poised. The audience whispered among themselves, praising her skill, her grace, and the unexpected power of her performance. Ryan followed her slowly, still processing what had just occurred. He realized that he had learned something important that night, a lesson in humility, respect, and the danger of judging others too quickly. The rest of the evening went on, but the memory of Lily's performance lingered. People continued to talk about it long after the applause faded, remembering the quiet woman who had struck a single note and transformed their expectations. Her talent, her determination, and her ability to remain calm under pressure left a lasting impression, reminding everyone that greatness often lies hidden in the most unexpected places. Lily packed her sheet music later, sitting at the piano one last time for the night. She let her fingers brush the keys softly, savoring the quiet aftermath of the performance. The room was empty now, the audience gone, the lights dimmed. She had done what she had set out to do, not for recognition, not for applause, but for herself. She had faced doubt, fear, and expectation, and she had emerged victorious, letting the music speak louder than any words ever could. Ryan lingered nearby, unsure of how to leave or what to say. He had been humbled, reminded that true talent often resides beneath cue. The night after the talent event, the community center was quiet, the echoes of applause and whispers still lingering in the minds of those who had been present. Lily returned early, not because she wanted attention or praise, but because the piano had called her back, as it always had. The air smelled faintly of the polished wood of the floor, and the lingering scent of the evening's candles and decorations. She approached the instrument slowly, her fingers lightly brushing the keys, remembering every note, every chord, every expression of the previous night. Ryan arrived shortly after, his footsteps hesitant. He had spent the night replaying the events in his mind, unable to shake the memory of Lily's performance. He had expected to be the star, to receive the applause, the admiration, the attention. Instead, he had been left humbled, stunned, and quietly awed. There was a shift in him now, a recognition that his assumptions had been wrong, and that the quiet, unassuming woman he had teased held a skill and depth he could not ignore. "Good morning," he said softly, careful not to break the calm in the room. He didn't attempt his usual confident swagger, didn't try to boast or assert himself. His eyes held a sincerity he had rarely displayed before. Lily looked up briefly, giving a small nod in acknowledgement. She did not speak at first, letting the quietness of the moment linger. The piano before her was familiar, almost like an old friend, and the notes waiting beneath her fingers seemed to hum in anticipation of what was to come. Ryan stepped closer, standing slightly to the side. I wanted to say thank you," he began hesitantly. "Not just for the performance, but for showing me something I didn't understand. I underestimated you, and I'm sorry." Lily smiled faintly, a small warmth in her expression. "It's all right," she said simply. "People often judge what they don't understand. The important thing is to learn from it." He nodded, and for a moment, neither spoke. The silence was comfortable, filled with the unspoken understanding that something significant had shifted between them. The teasing, the assumptions, the need to assert superiority, all of that had melted away, replaced by quiet respect. Then Lily spoke again, softly, her voice calm but firm. "You saw last night what music can do. It's not about showing off or being the loudest. It's about honesty, dedication, and feeling. You can play flashy notes, but if there's no heart behind them, it doesn't mean anything." Ryan listened, absorbing every word. He felt a humility he had not known before, a recognition that talent without respect, skill without purpose, and performance without meaning were empty. Lily's words carried weight, not because they were meant to scold, but because they came from experience, from truth, and from a deep understanding of what it meant to dedicate oneself fully to something. The day went on quietly. Lily practiced, letting her fingers glide over the keys, exploring melodies, experimenting with emotions, and testing her memory of the pieces she had played. Ryan stayed nearby, occasionally attempting a few notes, but never disrupting her, never boasting. He had learned that this was not about competition. It was about something deeper, something lasting. Later in the morning, a few staff members approached. They had been curious about Lily's background, wanting to understand how she had developed such remarkable skill in relative secrecy. Lily shared lightly, telling them about the years she had spent practicing quietly, the lessons she had taken in her youth, and the dedication she had poured into music despite never seeking recognition. Her story was simple, honest, and filled with a quiet humility that only made her performance the night, before even more impressive word began to spread subtly among the community. People who had been present at the talent night shared their astonishment with neighbors, friends, and family. They described the quiet woman who had transformed a simple piano piece into an unforgettable performance, the one who had started with a single note and captured the attention of everyone in the room. People were intrigued, amazed, and inspired. Lily's talent became a quiet legend in the small community, not through boasting or exaggeration, but through the undeniable truth of what they had witnessed. Ryan, meanwhile, continued to reflect. He watched her play, noting how naturally the music flowed, how every gesture and note carried meaning. He realized that his own confidence had been built on assumptions and the desire for attention, not on genuine mastery. In contrast, Lily's quiet dedication had produced something lasting, something that moved people and commanded respect without demanding it. He finally spoke again, quietly, almost reluctantly. Would you teach me?" he asked. "I want to understand, really understand. Not just play notes, I feel them, like you do." Lily paused, surprised but not offended. She considered his words, sensing the sincerity beneath them. After a moment, she nodded. "If you're willing to work and listen, yes. Music is more than just notes. It's about learning patience, feeling, and understanding. If you're ready for that, I can help." Ryan nodded eagerly, grateful for the opportunity and humbled by the chance to learn from someone he had once mocked. The dynamic between them had shifted completely. No longer was it about teasing or one-upmanship. It was about learning, growth, and the sharing of knowledge. Over the following days, Lily and Ryan spent quiet hours at the piano together. She guided him through exercises, teaching him not just technique, but the importance of expression, timing, and emotion. He struggled at first, his fingers clumsy, his approach mechanical. But she was patient, correcting gently, encouraging him to listen to the music, to understand its heartbeat, and to connect with the piano in a meaningful way. As the lessons progressed, Ryan began to change. He was no longer the brash, attention-seeking performer he had been. He listened more, observed more, and gradually learned to approach music with humility and care. Lily's influence went beyond technique. She had taught him about respect, patience, and the quiet power of dedication. He realized that skill without heart was empty, and that true mastery required both talent and understanding. Meanwhile, Lily continued to grow as well. Performing for the audience had rekindled a passion she had once feared lost. She explored new pieces, experimented with compositions, and began to share her music more openly with others. Her confidence grew, not through ego, but through the simple knowledge that her dedication and skill had value and impact. She became a quiet inspiration for others in the community, showing that persistence, patience, and love for one's craft could create moments of awe and beauty. The community center began to recognize her in small ways. They invited her to lead workshops for children, offering lessons on piano and music appreciation. People who had doubted her abilities now sought her guidance, eager to learn from someone who had proven that talent and dedication could transform expectations. Lily accepted these opportunities quietly, focused on sharing knowledge rather than seeking praise. She found joy in seeing others discover the same spark of passion that had always lived within her. Ryan, too, became a more thoughtful presence. He continued learning from Lily, now with a genuine appreciation for her skill and patience. He practiced diligently, not for applause, but for understanding. Over time, his own approach to music shifted, moving from flashy performance to thoughtful expression. He discovered a new respect for dedication and for the quiet influence of someone who had once been underestimated. The months that followed were filled with growth, learning, and quiet accomplishment. Lily's talent continued to shine, but she never sought to dominate or overshadow others. She had learned the value of humility, patience, and focus, and she shared that wisdom naturally. Ryan learned alongside her, grateful for the lessons and for the chance to grow under her guidance. The memory of the talent night lingered as a pivotal moment. It had begun with expectation, curiosity, and a hint of doubt, but it ended as a demonstration of skill, patience, and the power of quiet determination. Lily's single note, the start of her performance, had transformed not only the audience's perception, but also Ryan's understanding of talent, respect, and humility. Her story became a quiet legend in the community, a reminder that assumptions can be misleading, that talent is often hidden until the right moment, and that true greatness is revealed not through showmanship, but through dedication, heart, and the courage to embrace one's abilities fully. Lily continued to play, teach, and inspire, never seeking the spotlight, never craving recognition. Her music spoke for her, and it was enough. She had reclaimed her voice, her passion, and her confidence, and in doing so, had shown everyone who had doubted her that quiet strength often has the most profound impact. Ryan, now a student and admirer, understood this better than anyone. He had learned to respect, to listen, and to value true skill over appearance. The lessons he carried were not just about music, but about life, about humility, and about the power of recognizing talent where it is least expected. Together, they continued to explore music, creating a bond built on respect, learning, and shared passion. The community thrived from the inspiration Lily provided, and the piano became a symbol of patience, dedication, and the extraordinary potential hidden within those who dare to follow their hearts. Quietly but determinedly, the story of that night, the single note, and the talent revealed became a touchstone for anyone who had ever been underestimated. It rem.